Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how I did this costume party makeup. It's inspired by the silent movie actress Theda Bara, and Theda is one of my all-time favourite makeup muses. She was the original Vamp. I'll talk a little bit more about her as we go along, but you've probably already noticed that I bleached my eyebrows for this look and glued them down because I need to get a much straighter brow than normal to really recreate her look. So I'm just taking the Elmer's glue stick just through my brows again, just to make sure they're well stuck down. And then on top of that, I'm going to use a greasy foundation. I'm going to use one of these Hot Pores by Bobbi Brown just to seal that brow there. I'm going to go slightly lighter than my natural colour because I'm going to use a much lighter foundation all over anyway. So the first thing I'm going to do is map out this brow shape. You can see her brows are very, very straight. I'm just going to map roughly a shape using more of a brown pencil just to help me kind of figure out where the eye makeup will be. Once I've kind of drawn the brow in above it, it will really just, it's just a guideline really, more than anything else. So that's just a really rough guideline before I start the eye makeup. So the next thing I'm going to do is the rest of my foundation. I'm going to use, my foundation, just because I wanted my skin to look nice. I know I'm going to a costume party and I'm doing this look, but authentically, it would have been done all over the whole face with grease paint, which I can get the same effect without that, I'm pretty sure. I'm just going to build my foundation in a way which gives me more coverage than I would apply it normally. So I'm going to do about 3 layers of this, which will match this area, but without using grease paint all over. I mean, grease paint is obviously going to be spot on in terms of authenticity, but I really don't think my face will look good with it. It's got to look a bit cute for a party, even if you're channeling an era well gone by. At the time when Theda Bara was acting, it was the old-fashioned grease paint. It wasn't even the new version, so it would really crack. Once it was set and you were moving your face, it would be so thick, it would be cracking, which I guess is a really good look for Halloween. So maybe it is better to do it like that, but I'm going to stick with this. And I'm using shade 7 instead of shade 11, which is what I would normally wear. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is some under eye concealer. This is the Tarte, the lightest shade. I'm just going to blank everything out there. Lip wise, I'm going to take this around the edge of the lips because it's going to be a very small lip, which luckily I have on my lower lip, and I kind of have the shape already there as well, but I'm just going to make sure that that looks really authentic. So I'm blocking that out. If you have very full lips, you probably want to just take the concealer over the whole lip and then blend this in. So the next thing I'm going to use is the Ben Nye powder, and this is a white powder just to set everything. And this would have absolutely been used because grease paint needed setting above all else. So I'm going to set every single thing. I will do my neck and hands, but I'll wait till the end when I'm going to do my final look, my final present. Because of course the Vamp was based on a vampire. And the reason the idea of a vampire was quite prominent in popular culture was because of a painting by Burne-Jones in 1897, and also the famous poem by Rudyard Kipling called The Vampire as well, which is also in 1897. Which brings us to Theodosia Goodman. She's a young actress from Cincinnati, and she's, done some theatre acting, and she's done okay, but she wants more. And she goes to New York to start testing out, because obviously moving images and movies are where the action is. So silent movies she wants to break into. And she goes to New York and she's doing various castings, and then she ends up in a small movie with a small part. But she's spotted by the executives at Fox, who are looking to manufacture, and she's one of the first what you call manufactured movie stars, which means that they decided that they needed a particular character to play a particular part. I mean, it's a very typecast part, and that they wanted this Arabian, as they thought, woman that was going to come in and play the vamp, the vampire. And she was going to have this very strong role and always be seen in the same way. So the whole idea was that female characters in silent movies and in movies at that time, it was a male construction that they would have these key characteristics. So if you're a flapper, you're a good time girl, you're fun, you're a party girl. If you're a vamp, which they've decided that Theda's going to be the vamp, you are a seductress, you're into the occult, you are mysterious, you're from foreign lands, you are going to seduce men, steal husbands. This was the idea behind this character. They were looking for somebody that they could really just manufacture, that would be this character and would play this part over and over and over again. So it really is the absolute epitome of typecasting. So for the eyes, I'm going to do a smoky black kohl look because that's what she was super famous for. So after she was discovered, and she stars in her first movie in 1915, which was A Fool There Was, and she's an overnight sensation. She goes, literally, this movie comes out and she is a superstar. So there are different looks. She made so many films in the space of just a few years. Most of them, as I say, there's only photographs because most of the films have been destroyed. But you can see it's always a kind of similar look, but it goes from being a little bit rounder to, in Cleopatra, it's a little bit more winged. This is another one of her movies. So it's a similar look every time. And if you do really look closely, it's pretty poorly applied makeup because that's what was happening in the silent movie era. You have people that were doing makeup theatrically, so actors that were doing their own makeup for the theatre, and of course it looked amazing from far away. Then you start to get the close-up coming into films and you start to see that actually the makeup's pretty rough. So I'm going to do a version which is a bit more polished than it would have been at the time, but without succumbing to modern day trends of making it look so polished that it doesn't look authentic. So I'm going to start by using a black kohl pencil. In lots of the images, you actually see that there's like a shine along the roots of the lashes. I think that is because of the kohl that was used. I mean, there's lots of different reports. Someone says that it was Helena Rubinstein, but that's probably a marketing. Helena Rubinstein was amazing at marketing. So I'm sure after she became a famous star, she probably paid her to say that she used Helena Rubinstein. But it would have been something very greasy, like a real kohl pencil or a real liquid kohl. So I think often when you see in the images what looks like almost a light liner or like a metallic liner, it wouldn't have been that. It would have been more shine. And also they would have used Vaseline and things to create the drama and to blend. So I'm going to start quite slowly. And I'm just blending across. You do see a lot of the time that it looks lighter on the actual lid, but it's very strong close to the lash line. So I'm just blending kohl pencil all the way along. I'm going to start by going underneath as well. The other thing that you notice is that most of the waterline in most of the images is clean. It's not black. And this was probably, I picked up the wrong brush there, probably because the kind of kohl they were using, they probably started inside the waterline, but it wouldn't have lasted. So maybe I am going to put some in the waterline in a second. But we're going to start to get this shape here, really blending, and I'm going to mirror what I have on my brow, which is the shape of my brow, and start to wing out here a little bit. So I'm doing a mixture between all of the various looks that she wore. Something which is round, but also with a little bit of the Cleopatra shape. I'm now going to use a bit of colour just inside here into the socket line and to blend that around. The thing about silent films as well is that the film stock they were using was orthochromatic film, which changed the colour of everything. So there's a good chance this was actually quite softly done. And it became very, very black when it was seen on screen, but it might have actually been quite a soft grey in reality. So I'm just starting to blend that shape. We don't really want to go any higher than that. Oh, the story I wanted to tell you actually about how they introduced her to the press is absolutely brilliant. Only in early Hollywood would this happen. Because they wanted to tell the press that she was already famous, but just not in America. They created a press day and they had thick drapes all over the window, so it was quite dark, and they were burning incense and perfumes, and they told her not to speak so that she wouldn't give the game away. And then they just created this incredible backstory for her, saying that her mother was an actress in Paris, that she'd been born in Egypt. This whole kind of fantasy world of lies, really. But it absolutely worked, because one of the journalists wrote the very next day in one of the newspapers that Fox had discovered the greatest actress of all time. So that, again, was another stroke of marketing genius. So I am actually going to do through the waterline, even though it's not really authentic, but I'm going to smudge it so it doesn't last and kind of push it into the roots a bit more. Also going to add more on the top. Now, at the outer corner, I've decided to do a mixture from all of her movies and kind of mixing all these looks together. So I'm going to do one line which goes from the bottom. So I'm going to start under where I've just pushed it out of the waterline. And that line is going to go straight out like I did the other side. But on the top, I'm going to do a little bit of what she had for the film Cleopatra, which is that second line just above it. So I'll do that with pencil. I'll smooth this out. So we've got two little lines at the outer edge there. Just going to give that a little blend in. I mean, these really weren't very precise in the photography that you see. So starting to get that shape. Then in terms of the eyelid, we want kind of a round shape. So I'm going to go back in with the pencil and a brush. And I'm going to add a bit more here and a bit more at the outer corner. So we start to get a kind of intense crease just there, and then a bit more of a crease here, really into the crease though. When this is blended, it should start to give it slightly more of a round effect, so not coming up too high in the middle, if that makes sense. Then using a tiny Q-tip, I'm just wiping in between those two lines, just so we get a little bit more separation. So it's kind of winged but round at the same time. That's what I'm going for. And I'm also trying to make it look a bit messy, because otherwise it just will look too modern and it's not going to be her. So for lashes, if you think the first movie comes out 2 years before the first mascara is invented, so we haven't even got mascara at this point. Mascara in the block form comes 2 years after this movie's release. So what would they have been using? They would have been using black grease, lamp black, burning, charcoal on the bottom of a plate, coal dust and Vaseline. That's probably what they used for this. And it's not a very lashy look anyway. It's definitely more about, it's just a bit of depth, a bit of darkness through the lashes. So I'm not going to curl my eyelashes because I think that'll make it look too modern. I'm going to use just quite a volumizing sort of thickish mascara that will give the illusion of coal dust and Vaseline, hopefully. Just going to go back in with underneath a little bit more depth all the way along, and to wing out slightly more from underneath. So I've got my second line there at the bottom. It's going to come out a touch more. Oh, when I said the first mascara, I meant the first commercial mascara for everyone. In the theatrical world, there was something called Mascara, which was for, well, it was for dyeing beards and sideburns and things. But in the theatre, people did used to use that on their eyelashes. But it's 2 years before the first commercial, everyone's using it kind of mascara. I think I've gone too far down there now. I quite like it though. It's quite nice just to be, I think whenever I look at all the images of her, it's all quite slightly off makeup. Like it's got a lot of personality, a lot of character in it, which I guess we miss nowadays when everything's so perfect and done so well. It's quite nice to see that. I think that's probably why it's such an enduring image of her. There's something very human about it. So on to brows, and I'm going to go in with now a black pencil. They're quite thick, her brows, and they're never the same. It's quite brilliant that every time you look at an image of her, her brows look completely different. They're really dark, always darker than her eye makeup, in fact. Blacker than black. I'm just going to trace over my shape again before I thicken up. She was quite an exciting character in films, because if you think before then, it was people like Mary Pickford that were very sort of pretty and like blonde hair and acting really sort of, you know, in a, what's the word, a kind of nice way. And then you have the Vamp burst onto the scene and she's into the occult and she's stealing people's husbands and she has this incredible makeup. And women were actually really inspired by her. I think they liked the bravery. And Theda's quoted as saying that she had the face of a vamp, but the heart of a feminist. And lots of women looked up to her for, or looked up to the character in terms of the bravery and the feistiness and all of that. So it was quite an interesting duality, really. Okay, I'm kind of happy now, so I'm going to make this a little bit thicker. Before I do that, actually, I'm just going to map out my other shape. This is a really good thing to do. Now, obviously, if you're going to a costume party, I don't expect you to bleach your brows. So you can just work on top of your regular brows. Just aim to make them a little bit straighter than they are already. So if they're very, very arched, just fill in underneath a bit or fill in on the top of the outer edge. Just kind of work them with a black pencil so they look as straight as they possibly can. So I'm using Black Track, which is a gel liner now. I'm going to go in, I'm starting to thicken this eye up first, this eyebrow up. So I'm just going to go in, and this will help me to fill in between the glue. I'm getting there with my shape. And honestly, if you're doing this for fancy dress, you'll be more authentic if they look completely different. So if you're not good at doing makeup or eyebrows, Theda is your girl. She's the one to copy makeup from for this costume party, because her brows are completely different in every single picture. So you can't go wrong with it. So onto lips, and I'm sure the lipstick was actually bright red. But again, the film stock would have made it look black. So anything that was red became black. The shape is different to Clara Bow, different to Louise Brooks. Kind of a thin shape. but all the way to the edge, if that makes sense. So it's not one of those tiny little mouths in the middle. And it does have the nice little Cupid's bow thing. So I'm just going to map out my shape. Okay. All right, I'm happy with the lip shape. Two finishing touches. I'm going to go in with a really fine liquid liner and just mess up the edge of the brows a little bit and take off most of the stuff. Just so they look a little bit more like eyebrows now. So I'm just drawing hairs along the top, less of a block. Now I'm going to go back in with a really tiny brush and having a look. Some black eyeshadow, just to really soften up these brows. So they look a bit messier along the top especially. So I put on the wig. The wig was very inexpensive. Don't judge, it's real costume party wig. And then these are just all bits from my house. So this is from a dress I own. This was an earring, and I think you can, because Theda's character was so over the top, I think if you just put a headband around the wig, you can just fill it up with any bits of costume jewellery that you own, and you really can't go wrong. I am going to just slightly soften under the eyes now. I think once the wig's on, it's amazing how the makeup changes and you realise how you can kind of adapt it. So I'm just going a little bit darker underneath there. Fix that fringe. That is the finished look. Hope you enjoyed watching, and if you are going to any costume parties this year, do let me know in the comments who you are going to be channeling. And if you are channeling Theda, don't forget to send me a picture on social media because I'd love to see your take. That's it, guys. Bye.